course, you are joining us for the 2017 Raincross Riverside City Council debates. We are so glad to have you today. The election will be held on June 6th, but this is an all-mail-in election, so you need to mail your ballots in. The ballot must be postmarked by June 6th. You can also drop your ballot off at designated locations. The sponsor of these debates, we thank, of course, the Raincross Group, the Press Enterprise, the PIC Group, and Charter Communications. And we'd like to acknowledge the Neighborhood Alliance for providing us with feedback on the questions that were drafted today. The candidates for Ward 2 for this upcoming election are Kevin Dawson. He is a community volunteer. Jon Harris. Mr. Harris is a pastor and small businessman. And Andy Melendrez. Mr. Melendrez is the incumbent councilman and also a businessman. And we thank you, gentlemen, for participating today, and more importantly, for deciding to seek office in our great city of Riverside. It's quite a commitment, and we thank you all for your commitment to the community. We are going to ask a series of questions. The candidates will have 1 minute to respond. I reserve the right to follow up as well. We're going to start with Mr. Dawson, and the first question is to be answered by all three candidates. In 2 or 3 sentences, why do you want to serve on the City Council for the next 4 years? Keep it brief.
Keep it brief. Well, because I want to represent Ward 2, where the incumbent has conflicts of interest that have caused him to recuse himself 90 times over his tenure this past 12 years. And that's 90 times that Ward 2 was not represented on some very serious issues.
We'll let Mr. Melendrez respond to that momentarily. We'll continue with the pastor. Why do you want to serve as a city council member for Ward 2?
I'm delighted with the opportunity, Brad, to share and to infuse in my ward a compelling vision, one that encompasses business, safety and security, legacy and unity.
Mr. Melendrez, why don't you answer the question, and then I'd like you to respond to the allegation of conflicts of interest.
Okay. I've been a city councilman now for 11 years, going on my 12th year. We have seen tremendous change in Ward 2. We have seen the University Avenue just transition into a new avenue. We used to have prostitution, gang members, drug dealing, bad hotels, bad liquor stores. That has completely been eradicated. We do have a homeless issue that we're working with, but we want to continue to that growth and continue to elevate the quality of life there. But also at our university neighborhoods, we have we've had some issues with some of the students. I formed a strong partnership with the University of California at Riverside, and we've also worked with many of those investors who were renting to many students to be able to calm that and be able to bring this back to a regular neighborhood.
Could you respond to this statement of Mr. Dawson with regard to conflicts of interest?
Sure, I've been on the council 11 years. That has never, ever been an issue. One of the things that I have done is that I have invested in downtown Riverside. I believed in downtown Riverside in 1984 when I bought my first property down there. Again, I've been in there 12 years, almost 12 years, 11 years. That has never, ever been an issue, and I've never been...
Have you had to recuse yourself 90 times?
It sounds to me a little bit exaggerated. I have not seen any proof of that, but I've never had to recuse myself from anything that affected our Ward 2 constituents.
Okay, let's continue our question now to Mr. Harris and Mr. Melendrez, and then Mr. Dawson. We'd like you to list your top 3 priorities. Literally list 1, 2, 3.
Yes, number 1, giving the grassroots feedback, knocking on doors, and becoming acquainted with the electorate. The number 1 issue for Ward 2, if not across the city, is theft and crime. And I'm going to come in with some viable strategies that I've been working with some law enforcement.
So grassroots, theft,
right.
Crime. Mr. Melendrez.
Would you repeat the question?
Of course. List your top 3 priorities for Ward 2.
Well, one, obviously, when you talk about the quality of life, it's important that you have law enforcement. You also have
law enforcement,
police and fire. and also educational access to education.
So-
and we've brought those to our community.
Police, fire,
Fire,
education.
education.
Mr. Dawson,
And-
do you want to? I guess police and fire could be one.
Yes,
so what's your?
yeah, and roads. We think roads are
Roads.
so important to our community.
Okay, Mr.
There's a
Dawson.
disconnect in this city
Just
between,
list your top three.
well,
You can talk about
community enga-
disconnects later. We want your top three
community
as a list.
engagement, legacy project on our side, access to the county park, and fiscal responsibility.
Okay. Next question. What is the single most important problem in your ward, and how should it be fixed? We start with Mr. Melendrez.
One of the things that we've had occur, and it occurs throughout the state of California, is that we had a realignment where we had a release of non-violent individuals who were in prisons. We've had 3 waves of that, and I think every community is dealing with that issue. Obviously, we need to pick up our police department. We're down to 350 officers. We've made a commitment to increasing that to 410 officers. But again, that has been along with mail theft, has been a big issue in our community.
Does I'll call it the halfway house on
Yes.
University Avenue, does that exacerbate the challenge as it relates to realignment?
You know, one of the things that happens when you have a sober living home or a halfway house, if it's not well managed, it creates a lot of problems in the community.
Is it well managed in your mind?
We have very few that are well managed. We think that we have to deal with those on a more broad basis.
Mr. Dawson, what is the single most important problem in your area, and how would you plan to fix it?
We have quality of life issues in my area. We have traffic, we have halfway houses. Very often we hear from the city, we can't bring any resources, we don't have the money. We're the city of innovation. We should be able to work smarter with what we have.
Okay. Pastor, what would be the single most important issue, and how would you fix it?
Infrastructure, making sure our roads and our expansion, our growth in our city as a municipality, specifically in Ward 2, is not only getting the attention that it deserves, but making sure we have good custodialship in it going forward from this point.
Let me expand, if I may. As you know, the voters of Riverside were very generous in November, passing Measure M. Some of that money could go to roads. We also know that the state of California recently passed a transportation sales tax. Some of that money could go into Riverside. It's actually Measure Z, forgive me.
Z.
How can you leverage Measure Z money with the money coming from Sacramento to the benefit of Ward 2?
Oh, advocacy. Making sure that as we sit and represent our constituents at the table, being a member of the council, we make sure that we come with viable and tangible facts. Like one of the quick references is Sycamore Canyon. That road is beat up right there in front of Raceway Forward, and it's being used inappropriately for hard freight passages, trying to get onto the 215.
That road needs work, we hear you, but how do you ensure that Measure Z funds come to Ward 2, as well as the money that should be trickling down from Sacramento as a result of the $52 billion sales tax increase, or gas tax increase?
That's where a relationship with Richard Roth, our state senator, Jose Medina, our assemblyman, comes into play. And we get together and make sure that what we're proposing as a city council is in compliance with what will release those funds so those given needs can be addressed.
Okay, let's move to the next question. We'll start with Mr. Dawson. Riverside calls itself the City of Arts and Innovation. What does this moniker mean to you, and what specifically would you do to help the city better live up to the moniker?
Well, I'm very excited by a small startup business that's here in Riverside. It's over on Spruce. It's called Vocademy. And it is Gene Sherman has this business where he's teaching young people how to use their hands again, how to work in the trades. And he's tying into the maker movement. This is really important. We don't teach vocational arts in our public education system anymore.
So what can you do, though, as a councilman on that front? You're not running for RUSD board, for example.
I understand, but what we are trying to do is make good marriages of ideas. Look, we have 3 universities in our town. we want to keep the students that are coming out with degrees in engineering. We want them to be here. Don't we want people to do startups here, like, be the next Silicon Valley in the sense of somebody starting something in their garage? You do it with maker movement.
Okay, Mr. Harris.
Repeat the question, Brad.
The question is, Riverside calls itself the city of arts and innovation. What does this moniker mean to you, and how will you work to live up to the moniker, if you buy into it?
Yeah, I do buy into it. Matter of fact, that's one of the things that I have a lot of gratification about being native in Riverside. But to your question, Ward 2 is unique, and we have an organic and very huge capital asset coming in the form of CARB, California Air Resource
Nice,
Board.
yes.
And it's no accident that it's on a corridor that is, right down from Bourne's Industries. I know Bourne is in Ward 1, but seeing the development of what is transpiring, this collaboration between UCR, the city, and the county, it is worth noting that there's something that is taking place here that we can look to excitedly to the future. And also, as far as arts, we have a lot of under-mentored and developed artistic expressions and talents that we need to have fostered and coached. So I'm really excited about that, especially given in my faith-based exposure.
Right. Mr. Melendrez, it's hard to deny that you have made arts and innovation one of your premier priorities since you've been sitting on the city council. Yes. Do you believe that that emphasis has been to the benefit of Ward 2? Has Ward 2 benefited from your focus?
Oh, definitely. What we've been able to do over the past 10 years, even before the moniker occurred, the arts and innovation, we started exposing our low-income children to ballet, to opera, a variety of other musics. And about 4 years ago, I was able to found the Riverside Arts Academy, along with a group of parents who have been very, very committed to making sure our low-income community has access to musical education. They learn violin, ballet, wind instruments, drums, piano, a variety of other skills. And we have it in low-income communities, not only because it is accessible to our low income, but we also have it in an area that's being revitalized, that in the past it had bad hotels and bad liquor store. So there's a huge transition going on University Avenue through the arts and through the music.
I want to key off of what a few of you have said and focus on our universities here in the city of Riverside. We're going to start with Mr. Harris. And my question is, what steps would you take to diversify the local economy, nurture high-wage job growth in Riverside? And in answering, consider the fact that Riverside is blessed with 3 top-class universities, and how can those universities work to push along the desire to grow and diversify jobs?
Well, first of all, you want to join in with the vision of Chancellor Wilcox at UCR, with their ultimate goal being to keep and retain a larger portion of the UCR graduates. And I know that's across the board with CBU and La Sierra University, not to mention RCC. There's collaborative efforts between the School of Medicine at UCR, nursing at RCC, and the nursing program at CBU. So these are good, strong middle-income vocations and professions. But in addition, there needs to be a very sincere and earnest reciprocation from local municipal leadership. In other words, it just isn't one where it's absentee, but you get in there and you show them the reasons why it's worth their interest to stay here and be the human capital that will raise the livability and equity of our city.
Mr. Melendrez, given you've sat on the council for 3 terms, talk to us about your achievements on this front. UCR, I believe, is in Ward 2, literally.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I want to get a sense how you've worked to specifically leverage UCR to the benefit of Ward 2 and all of the city of Riverside, and how, assuming re-election, if you are,
Sure.
will you continue to work to leverage UCR, Cal Baptist, La Sierra?
Sure. Partnering with UCR is so important. They are just the catalyst of Ward 2 and also an economic engine. One of the things that we've done there at the city is we've partnered with UCR, not only myself, but our staff. But we've been able to bring to the area our UC Path, which is now the Human Resources Department for the entire state university system. CARB is the other one, Clean Air Resources Board is the other, and also very strongly supported the UCR Medical School, working with our assembly member, our state senator. And everyone in the community, including the Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce. And through that team, we've been able to secure those jobs that are going to be extremely, extremely profitable to our city.
But what we know about UCR is it's seeing its day in the sun. I mean, UCR is now becoming one of the finer UCs in the entire state, and I can only imagine it will continue along those lines.
Yes.
So given that UCR is seeing its reputation, its desirability increase, how would you work to leverage that popularity to the benefit specifically of Ward 2, which admittedly faces some challenges?
Yeah, obviously partnerships with local business people are so important. You want to be able to keep those students in town, those talented students. You've trained them here, they've gone to education here. You want to create those partnerships with local businesses so that they'll gain those skills. Very similar to what the UCR Medical School does. They find the hospitals, they do the internships, and then they grow from there. We want to be able to do that in the arts. We want to be able to do that in engineering. We want to be able to do that in other capacities as well.
Mr. Dawson.
I am a proud UCR graduate. My wife and I met in UCR, and she's a graduate too. I understand the campus. Let me tell you, these are well-educated people, but you're not going to keep them here in Riverside if we keep approving mega warehouses that are low-paying jobs, that have a low job per square foot. It's going to be automated. We need small incubator type of business or structures so that our graduates can stay here and develop small business, well-paying. We saw that in Orange County. My dad was an engineer for Rockwell International, and there's a whole 2 or 3 levels of small businesses surrounding those plants. And even with the downturn of the Cold War, those businesses have gone on to where those are the entrepreneurs driving the Orange County economy. We need that here. We need to replicate that kind of level of entrepreneurship here.
Let's talk about warehouses. We'll start with you, Mr. Melendrez. I think you're next to be first. As you know, in February, the council split, but ultimately approved a large warehouse project that actually butted up against a residential neighborhood. I believe you're in opposition.
Yes.
That being said, I do want to speak with you about what we'll call the warehouse economy. Look, for better or for worse, the Inland Empire does have a lot of land and seems to attract a lot of warehouses. At some level, we have to thank Amazon for bringing a lot of jobs to the Inland Empire as a result of warehousing opportunities. But as Mr. Dawson does suggest, it's not an easy fix, and there are certain controversies surrounding it. Talk us through your views of the warehouse economy, why you opposed the measure in February, and what you think about warehouses on a go-forward basis. And we'll get to you too as well, of course.
Yeah, one of the things, the reason I oppose that is 1.4 million square feet, and it's going to be 150 to 160 feet from the neighbors' backyards.
Right.
It is severely going to impact their quality of life, which is the reason I opposed that facility.
Sure.
The other reason there is concern because warehouses sometimes bring in part-time work, temporary work for 6 months, and then you may have a job, you may not have a job. It might be $15, it might be $13 an hour. That's the average warehouse worker. Now, one of the things about the growth of the city of Riverside, you need to find a balance. You need to find a balance between the professional jobs and the warehouse jobs. The warehouses will eventually become automated, even more automated than they are today.
But those could be high-paying jobs.
Well, they could be, but those are in the administration part of it, and there aren't very many of them, unfortunately.
Let me move on just so we can continue. I'd like to get your view. You've talked a bit about warehouses, but is there a warehouse that you can see yourself voting for should you be elected? So warehouses are a no-go for you.
And furthermore, here we are. It's ironic that we went to such great pains to attract CARB to Riverside, and then we're approving warehouses. Those are smart people that work at CARB, and they know what the air quality impacts of warehouses are. There's a lot of professors at UCR. They commute from great distances, so they don't live in Riverside, and the same thing could end up happening at CARB.
Mr. Harris, do you see yourself supporting warehouses in the future?
Let me answer it this way, Brad.
Please.
First of all, this speaks to the core of strong leadership skills. From a historical standpoint, the city council person should have been out ahead of the curve. And there should have been strong negotiating and people skills demonstrated.
That was not Mr. Melendrez in this instance, correct?
I'm not asserting that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the fact of the matter is we get to this pivotal tipping point where it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we have discontented and egregiously upset, rightfully so, residents. So yes, I'm one that looks forward to having a sense of balance. I think that we have for a long time our stay for warehouses. We need to now develop the kind of small businesses that's going to really feed our economy and stimulate the kind of growth that represents good and healthy municipal advancement.
I want to jump to a topic that's been in the news a lot lately, and that is the question of immigration and deportation. As a result of the new administration in Washington, we know that there has been and will continue to be presumably an increase in efforts to deport those that are here without documentation. Now, we know that Riverside, like virtually every city in California, does not enforce federal immigration laws. It does not have a policy, though, specifically with regard to protecting undocumented residents. I want to ask very simply, we'll start with you, Mr. Dawson. Do you believe that Riverside should take a very clear position on the question of, I'll say sanctuary status? The term doesn't mean much. Safe haven, safe zones, whatever it is. Should Riverside go on the record and say that it supports sanctuary, safe haven, safe zones?
What does our city stand for if not for the people who live here? These people are neighbors, they work here. I think that we need to create a safe environment for them.
But
and
do
I'm not
we
talking
need to-
about harboring
Right.
criminals
Of
as they're
course.
being characterized.
But my question is very specific. Should Riverside pass some type of resolution that declares that the city of Riverside is a sanctuary, safe haven, safe zone? I don't want to get caught up in the terms, but I think you know where I'm going. Yes or no?
I think that we should have a public discussion about that, and to not put it on the council agenda and open it up to where the citizens can come and discuss it in a public forum is a disservice.
Okay, I'd like to see what Mr. Harris says about this, especially since you are a member of the faith-based community. The sanctuary movement started in the faith-based arena. And again, I don't want to get caught up in what sanctuary means. I think you all know where I'm going. Do you believe the city of Riverside should go on record supporting sanctuary, safe haven, safe zone, whatever term you want to use?
You need to let the Riversiders decide that, not be dictatorial, not constrain them and force it upon them. We are.
So you believe that this issue should go to a vote?
Yeah, we should ask the people that make up Riverside.
Go to a vote, not
Yeah.
go to a vote of the city council, but we should ask the voters whether they. That's
No,
okay.
no. Given the status and the macro encompassing of this from a national, state,
Well,
and local,
if it went to the vote of the people, would you support or oppose?
I've got to see. I'm not fully aware, given that just yesterday,
Recently.
Just yesterday, there was a federal judge stopping what the executive order was trying to accomplish. And so now it's up in a topsy-turvy situation. There needs to be a clear, definitive delineation of what it is that the federal government is trying to accomplish.
Mr. Melendrez, you were very active in this question when the city of Menifee faced challenges.
Yes.
Briefly, do you believe that the city of Riverside should go on a record in support of sanctuary, safe haven, safe zones?
Well, I think the city of Riverside needs to define. We have not defined it as a city. We can put it into other terms like Riverside Together. We need to let the residents know that we are in support of what they do and who they are. I grew up in a low-income community. I grew up in Casablanca. A majority of the individuals, when I was growing up there, were agricultural workers. Some were documented, some were not. Right. But we all had a good community together, hardworking individuals, and I think the city of Riverside does need to fully define who we are and how diverse we are. We have an old paper that's been sitting on our city hall wall for 10 years or longer talking about being a diverse community, but I think we need to re-emphasize that to our community.
Okay, we now have time for closing statements. 1 minute each. Please stick to the 1 minute. We're going to start with Mr. Melendrez. And please feel free to address the camera.
Thank you, Brad. My name is Andy Melendrez, and I have been your city council member for the past 11 years. We have seen tremendous success in the city of Riverside. We've also seen a huge transition on University Avenue, and we'll continue to see that. University neighborhood has been harmed by some of the party houses and some of the growth that the University of California has experienced. But I have worked with the neighbors to address those concerns, and I think we're headed in a different direction, a more positive direction. Sycamore Canyon, a very important neighborhood to our community. I continue to work with them and protect their quality of life. Canyon Crest, is a very large community, obviously continue to do huge amounts of outreach and continue to work with some of the issues locally. I would be honored to have your vote and be the city council member for the next 4 years.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, I'm Jon Scott Harris. I'm born, raised in Ward 2. I'm the only one in this campaign election season that can say that. My 4-point platform is clear. It's business. Me and my wife are small business owners. We operate, and we're very fortunate to have a growing and thriving medical practice. I believe in safety and security. I've given some results in areas that identify with the principles of what we're facing across the board, not only in our ward, but in our city. Legacy. There's a huge apathy and depression upon the self-esteem of our ward that was resident when I was a kid, and I want to resurrect that. And then lastly, unity. I want to be the city council person that brings all of the assets and human and neighborhood capital together. I'm asking for your vote. Join Jon this coming election.
Mr. Dawson.
My name's Kevin Dawson, and I've been a community activist, watchdog for the city. I have a long track record of pursuing issues of ethics, financial misappropriation of funds. I've been the guy who is the community representative with the city working on the new rules to stop cut-ups. I've been the community representative at UCR to deal with UCR growth issues. I've been actively engaged in working on the quality of life issues, and I've been tenacious at it. And I want to be that tenacious activist for Ward 2 and make the city better for all of us.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so very much. We wish you the best of luck in the election, which will be held on June 6th, an all-mail-in ballot. On behalf of the Raincross Group, the Press Enterprise, the PIC Group, and Charter Communications, my name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for joining us on the Raincross Riverside 2017 City Council debates.